I heard Sean's story a couple years prior to that about his leg and being a hometown guy, and it struck me in a different way because I don't know, Sean. I don't know if it was because we were from the same town or we had a connection. I knew your uncle very well, Sudbury Wolves. It was one of those things that I was like, damn, that's awful. Stuff happens like this all over the place, but it kind of hit me. So when you called me, I was like, for sure, I want to talk or help you if I can. And then so time went by. I don't know what happened there, but funny thing was that I was doing a webinar on the OHL 2 weeks ago, and I had to go to the site, and I came across an article on Sean Venedam on the Sudbury Wolves site. So I read it, and I was like, wow, I got to call him because this is going to be a great story. It's about kind of adversity. And what really struck me was because I saw the way Sean Venedam played hockey, and I knew that would, not being able to play hockey would hurt him. And, it reminded me of just playing like your last shift, how important it is to play every game. Every time you go on the ice, appreciate it and play like you're on your last shift. So anyways, I'm kind of done introducing him. Sean, I'm sorry for doing it for so long. But I want you to go through and tell me about go ahead and say hi so everyone can see your face first.
Oh, thanks for the intro, Andy. I appreciate it. And when actually the last time we spoke was, I still had my leg at that point. So it was, that's right. A little bit. We were talking about a hockey school in Sudbury, and that's kind of where it was going. I was looking to kind of stay involved in the game still. So, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to sharing my story a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So you did have your leg. I wonder what happened at the end of that. So yeah, but it was a really touching thing. It bothered me a lot to know that a buddy of mine's nephew was injured like that. But here I want you to go and do it. So go through your time from Sudbury, growing up as a kid. Take us through any journey you want to, all the way up through junior to pro and to your injury. So go ahead.
All right. Perfect. No, I grew up, like you said, in Sudbury, Ontario. I grew up a hockey player. I came from a family of hockey players, and I played my minor hockey in a place called Valley East, just north of the city, and that's where I grew up. I started playing. I was told by minor Bantam I had to make a decision if I wanted to continue on with hockey. I'd have to go play AAA in Sudbury, and I made that decision to do so. I played 2 years of Bantam in Sudbury. We had a great group of guys both years, and from there I was faced with another decision. If I wanted to further things and give myself the best opportunity, I had to go somewhere else. And I chose Barrie. Barrie had a great program at the time. They had a junior B program. I was very fortunate as a 16-year-old to come to Barrie, where I live now, and play for a fantastic Barrie Colts junior B team. We won the Sutherland Cup that year. We went 47-0-1, didn't lose a game all regular season, lost 2 in the playoffs in the first 2 rounds, and swept the last 3. So at that point, I knew that hockey was going to be part of my life for sure. I was having such a good time, and when you're winning, everything's good. From there, I was drafted by the Wolves in the 6th round. I went to camp the following year in Sudbury. Things didn't work out in the first 48 hours. That was on me. I didn't play well enough, and they gave me the option to play the exhibition games or not. I decided not to. I came back to Barrie. A lot of guys that I had played with the year prior had obtained some U.S. scholarships, and at the time that was the road that I wanted to take. I got a call. So that season, I played, September, October. I got a call from Sam McMaster, the GM of the Wolves at the time, and asked me if I'd come back to Sudbury. At the time, I was a little skeptical. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I said, it was one of those decisions as a young man that, you're really at a fork in the road in your hockey career, and you're picking one over the other because there is a difference. I've played with a lot of guys and friends with a lot of guys that went the U.S. college route, and some of my best friends still to this day are guys that I played junior hockey with. So I opted for the junior hockey route, going back to my hometown, like you said, which was probably one of the best experiences that a young hockey player could hope for. I was fortunate enough to play there for 4 years. From there, I realized we had some really good teams. I learned from a lot of really good people that are still involved in hockey. I realized that I did want to pursue hockey as a career at that point. Once again, you're faced with another career choice because you know, you have the schoolboy package in one hand and you have pro hockey, you know, lurking in the other, and you got to make that decision once again. So still a tough decision to make as a 20-year-old, and I opted for the pro route, and it's something I do not regret. I was fortunate enough to play on some good teams. My first year was in Toledo, Ohio. I spent 4 years in Greenville, South Carolina, which was just a fantastic place to live. We were an expansion team at the time. We won the Kelly Cup in my last year. After that, I went on to play in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is, if anyone's ever played minor pro hockey, that's the Mecca minor pro. Anyone and everyone that I meet now that's played hockey has stopped in Fort Wayne at some point in their careers, and everyone's loved it. So we won a Colonial Cup there the following year, and then that brought me to Bakersfield, California, where I finished my career. Unfortunately, you know, under different circumstances that I ever could imagine. But that's the way that things happen.
So I just, before we get into the injury, which is a big piece here, your first year, because this one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was about always developing late bloomers, early bloomers, and I think people don't understand how hard it is to make the OHL at 16 years old, which I think, so you would have played at 17.
I played at 17, right?
Yeah. So that's a huge decision. So like for the younger kids that are coming through, in fact, my kid's a 14-year-old. He's at 2 years. Next year's his draft year, so his age group is their draft. For the early bloomers, late bloomers, it always comes down to hard work. And so what was it for you because you said you went to the camp, you weren't ready, and you said it was self-induced a little bit?
It was. You know,
explain that a little bit.
As a kid growing up, I played in an AA center all the way up, like I said, till I got to minor bantam. I made the jump at minor bantam, and even at minor bantam, we had some great teams, and I had a lot of success. When I look back on it, I could always shoot the puck. That was something I was always comfortable doing, but that was something I worked on day and night. I shot 500 pucks a day growing up as a kid. That's from the time I was playing minor peewee to the time I finished junior hockey. I would literally shoot 500 pucks a day. One thing that I kind of overlooked at the time was my skating, because we didn't have any ice in the summertime, so we didn't have any programs like you guys run now, and like we didn't have the access to a lot of these programs that the kids have now. There was no ice. You grew up in Sudbury, there was no ice in the summer. You just did something else, right? So skating was probably one of the, one of the skills that I just not overlooked. I could get by, and I got by okay, but I didn't realize until I got to the OHL that, hey, my skating is nowhere near where it should be, especially being a smaller player. And back then, when I came through, that was the Lindros era, where everyone was massive. You had a lot of big guys. There wasn't a lot of small guys. Being from Windsor, a guy that I loved watching and playing against and had the privilege to play against was Billy Bowler. I thought he was an unbelievable talent for a smaller player, and he was one of the guys that dominated that league. But there wasn't too many of those guys, undersized guys, that could dominate like Billy did. But the skating, I was told by my coach, I'm still in touch with him these days. I'm still a good friend of his, was Glenn Markowski, and he told me my first year, and when I left that training camp, he said, if you're going to play in this league, or you want to further your career as a hockey player at the professional level, he said, you're going to have to become a better skater. So when I went back to Sudbury in October that year, he said, listen, I'm going to help you. If you want the help, I'm willing to help you. Let's work on this in practice. So he taught me a few little things like lengthening my stride, and over time, it didn't take that long. It took me, I'd say within a year and a half, I nailed it down. And by the end of my career, I'd consider myself probably an above average skater. I thought I had improved that much. And so going back to if you can identify your weaknesses, I think you're going to be a lot better for it, for sure. And you're willing to work on those weaknesses.
100%. Like, so that's what I do in business, right? It's funny how people take information in. So what Sean just said there is so important, and it's so critical, because your strengths are your strengths, and they're probably going to always be your strengths. And shooting pucks, we all love to shoot pucks. Who doesn't, right? It's a lot of times, to be a really good player, you have to spend, not a lot of times, you have to spend time on your weaknesses. You got to get them up, because it's just like a team. Your weakest link is going to drag a team down. You're only strong as your weakest link, and it's the same as a player. So if you have something that you're struggling with, or you need help, it's you got to get on it. You got to get on to make yourself better because the leagues are just so good. And before we go to that next level, speaking of leagues, let's go there. So when you went from midget to junior B to the OHL to pro, just for the heads up for any, because we got people from all over the place that listen to this. Every league is tough, and it gets tougher as you go. So just explain the importance of that. Like when you think you're maybe doing really well, because you got 47, 49 goals in the OHL.
Yeah, 47 one year. Yeah.
And you put up points, and you were, like, in my opinion, you were a very good skater. But maybe I was young. No, you were good.
Every generation gets better, Andy.
Yeah. You should have seen how good I was. So true. So just explain that too. Like, you can never really be, if this is really what someone wants. Like, people talk like there's talk is cheap. But if you really want to do that, what's your advice on that? Like, for every level, you have, because the competition just gets better.
I guess this is the best way I could put it, is getting better is very uncomfortable, and you've got to get out of that comfort zone. And mine was skating, and my coach was good because he allowed me in practice. He said, I don't care how fast you do a drill. He said, I want you to focus on the length of your stride. So that was the biggest thing for him. He said, length will be power for you, because I had a short, choppy stride. So he said, when you're doing a drill, he said, I don't want you to focus on anything else. I don't care if you can receive a pass, take a shot, but focus on doing the drill, but lengthening the stride the whole time you're doing it. So it was just something that stuck with me. And over time, it finally clicked. At first, I was so uncomfortable doing it. I thought, hey, I don't look good doing it. I don't feel good doing it. And I don't even know if it's working. But like I said, after doing it and working on it, it finally clicked. And I thought, wow, this is, and for a smaller guy, I think I had one of the longer strides after a while. And it was just something that you grow with and you build with. And a lot of times you don't realize as a young player. And the one thing I tell a lot of the kids that, come through my store where I work, and if we're on this topic of conversation, is there's not that much difference between each level. There is, but there isn't. And I grew up watching junior hockey. I watched you play as a kid. I watched so many guys come through, and before I knew it, in the blink of an eye, I was in training camp with a lot of these guys that I was watching, grow up, like Mike Yeo and Jamie Matthews and all these guys I was on the ice with, and I was like, well, man, I'm not that far behind these guys, So you don't realize how quick you're developing. And if you can zone in and figure out, with the help, of say a coach, a friend, if you can learn to take advice and constructive criticism, you're going to be a lot better for it.
Absolutely. Well, something you said that's great. I live by what you said about, it's Coach Glenn, right? Murkowski?
Yes.
Yeah. Great coach, by the way. And I believe that you have a great relationship with him. But it's one of the things I've been preaching forever, and it's hard for people to actually understand it. And there's a term that the military uses called slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And when people are doing their training, and it's all built, it's all because of the mind-muscle connection. So when Glenn Murkowski was telling you all you would need to think about is lengthening the stride, he was making that mind-muscle connection. So by you concentrating on it, like you were fixing your mistakes as you were doing it, because you're getting a feel for what was right. So there's times, I'm sure, where you were striding and go, no, that didn't feel right. Or you were striding, so that's what it feels like. And the more you make that connection, the more your skill starts to go through the roof. So for the kids out there, even the coaches out there that are listening right now, really, really important to understand that, running through drills or just doing drills is not the answer. It's finding specific things and making that mind-muscle connection. That's why it's so important to take the time to go through the little details of a skill and continue to build it until you get it right. And then you'll have it for life, and it'll stick, because it works. Now there's proof it works. So, Sean, that was good. I like where this is going. So what I want to talk to you now is the heart of this thing is, I want you to talk about, because your passion for the game, your knowledge of the game is just oozing through. You can tell, like I said, you should have a C on your t-shirt right now, because you sound like a captain. It's leadership. You don't find it all the time. That's why it's real important people listen. So you're playing pro hockey. You're enjoying your life, I assume. You're doing what you love to do, and then you break your leg, right? How'd you break your leg?
Yeah, so I was playing in Bakersfield, California at the time in the ECHL. It was February 14th. We were on the road in Utah. It was late in the game. We were down by a goal. We had just called a timeout. I was playing the left side of the ice. I got the puck coming through the neutral zone. We had a play. We had a set play. We were going to dump it in. We were going to overload the one side and try and make something happen. As I came through the neutral zone, I saw one of their defensemen I was just about to cross center ice to get the red line to dump it in to avoid that icing. And because I had a couple guys going down the right hand side, and I saw the D-man coming across, and as I lifted my back leg to dump the puck in, their defenseman had closed on me pretty quick, and it was kind of with a hip check that he hit me, but it was right in front of their bench. And at that point, it's tough to say what happened. I've only watched the video once because it didn't sit very well at the time. So I think my leg hit the top of the dasher, and when it hit the top of the dasher with him, coming right through me, it literally snapped my leg in half. It was a compound fracture of the tib fib, and at first I didn't know I broke my leg. Something was wrong. I had fell on all fours. I still had my gloves and my stick on. And when I went to get up, because I knew I had to get to the bench because I was hurt, but I went to push off and there was nothing there. So, at that point I sat down and I looked down at my leg, and it was a complete 90-degree break. And it was, it was one of those things that, you don't like to see yourself. So, and I knew something was wrong at the time because it did happen right in front of their bench. And, as hockey players, after a big hit and your teammate lays somebody out, you're going to cheer, you're going to chirp, you're going to rip the guy. But that didn't happen. Everything went silent. So I laid down in front of their bench. And as I looked up, I could see, just the look in a lot of the players' eyes. Some guys turned away. Some guys yelled for a doctor. Some guys were telling me just to stay calm. So that's when the game of hockey actually, it validated, the true spirit of the game at that point. You battle and battle and battle and battle and until somebody gets hurt, and that's where you realize that this game is real, and the people are real, and the people are genuine, and hockey players are great people. So that was the break. I was rushed to the hospital. I had emergency surgery that night. They put a rod in, 4 screws. At the time, I said my one question was, am I going to be able to play? I was 32 years old at the time. I was having a good season. Our team was just starting to play well. Living in California, things are fantastic. I had no complaints whatsoever with the way I was living. And they told me, yeah, you'll go on, you'll play, you'll be ready to play in 6 months after rehab, all that stuff. And, unfortunately, it just didn't happen. Right. So what happened was I suffered. They put a hard cast on my leg. I guess from what I was told, they shouldn't have. It should have been a soft cast to allow for the swelling. The swelling reversed itself, and I suffered a compartment syndrome where it kills all the nerves it killed all the nerves in my ankle, in my foot and my ankle. So what ended up happening is I lost dorsal and plantar flexion in my ankle. So it was almost like my ankle was in a fused state, completely numb at all times. So I really couldn't even feel my foot. When it first started, my foot was really, really sensitive to any touch. I leave the hospital in Utah 3 days later. I fly to California. The doctor looks at me. He's like, we're admitting you right away, our orthopedic surgeon. They bring me to the hospital in California in Bakersfield. They start putting me through hyperbaric treatments twice a day to try and regain some blood flow and circulation. That didn't work. I spent 2 weeks there, and that was the first time where my doctor in California, our orthopedic surgeon, said, listen, amputation might be a possibility somewhere down the line. So that was a tough pill to swallow, because you look for the best in every situation, and that's the worst. So fast forward, I guess, several years. I was on crutches for almost 3 years, 3.5 years. I went through a series of surgeries. I ended up getting an infection. I was on a PICC line for a full year. I ended up losing bone mass in my leg. My leg, the bone shrunk or deteriorated by about almost 1 3/4 inches. So I had another surgery to install an external fixator. If people don't know what that is, it's a device that almost that goes on the top and the bottom. So one was at the top of my ankle and the other one was on my shin. And they drill through the bone, and you actually turn an Allen key every day to separate the bone where new bone can grow in. So that was I had that for about 8 to 10 months. Several more surgeries. I had broke some hardware after that was removed, and so I had more surgeries to insert more hardware. And I guess the breaking point was I had moved back to Canada. Most of these surgeries were done after the first 3. The rest of the surgeries were done in Toronto, and so at that point I was, you don't know where this is going. So I meet this surgeon in Toronto who's starting to do all these surgeries for me, and he's a great guy and probably one of the best surgeons in Canada. And so anyway, his name's Dr. Michael McKee. He's working at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, and he's a hockey guy. He loves the game. He's got connections to the Leafs and just all professional hockey players. So when I met Mike, he was very optimistic, but I think he was optimistic for my sake, and he wanted to give me belief that there was a possibility that we could fix this, and I felt confident that if anyone could fix it, it was going to be him. So I guess in the end, what happened was I was doing okay, still no dorsal or plantar flexion in my ankle, but I was getting by. And Mike had removed some hardware in one of my last surgery. I think it was removed for about a week. I was walking through Home Depot one day. I went and picked up some hardware for a job I was doing at home. I bent over, and when I bent over in Home Depot, I literally heard my leg snap. It sounded like a tree branch had snapped. So immediately, full sweat. I was sweating right through my jeans, and I knew that this is bad. So I tried to put pressure on it, and it was almost the same break that I had initially when I broke my leg. So I hopped out of Home Depot on one leg. I got in my car. I drove home. I got home. I called my doctor, or actually we went to the hospital in Ottawa, and they wanted to do surgery right away. They said, we're rushing you into surgery. And I said, I don't want you to touch me. So I called the doctor, and in Toronto, Mike, I called his office. They put me through to him. He was in an OR doing another surgery. He came out of the OR, and I think he was more upset than I was at the time that all this was for naught. 3 years of these surgeries and had all kind of gone for naught. So at that point, he said, can you be here tomorrow? Can you drive from Ottawa to Toronto? I said, yeah. I showed up in his office, and he said, listen, man, he said, we got to make a decision here. He said, I don't want to do anything to it. I don't want to open you up again. He said, let's take some time, and I want to let you think about things. So at that point, I went home back to Ottawa, and that's when it gets real. You start to think, okay, I've got to make a decision here, and what direction do I want to go in? So like I said before, you come to a fork in the road where you got to pick one or the other. And I was laying on the couch, and I was watching Hockey Day in Canada. And when I'm watching this on TV, they had a segment on, it was the standing amputee hockey team, the Canadian national team, the 5-time world champions. And at the time, I didn't know the volume was down, and you're on pain meds, and you're laying on a couch. So I watched these guys walk in. They're missing limbs. They get on the ice, and now these guys are on the ice, but it doesn't look like any of them are missing limbs. So I'm a little confused. So I turn it up, and I start watching this, and I realize, holy shit, Canada's got a team, an amputee hockey team. So here I'm thinking that, I've got to make a decision to amputate my leg. Who better to reach out to than to this group of guys? If anyone knows what I'm going through, some of these guys might. I later found out that I was the only guy that ever broke his leg and would lose his leg playing hockey. But, these guys, some of them have been playing for years, and some of them, there's one guy from the Windsor area, Mike Barnwell. He was a military vet. He was on the unfortunate side of a roadside bomb in Afghanistan. And so you meet all these guys. So I reached out to them. They called me back, and I started talking to a couple of them, and just it blew my mind. So it brought me to a place that I never imagined I'd get to. So with their support and reaching out to different friends and family and really talking this through, I realized, you know what, this might be an option. So I was in Florida, and I was at a Winners in Florida in the change room. My phone rang one day, and it was the surgeon from Toronto. It was Dr. Michael McKee, and all he said, Sean, how are you? said, I'm doing well, doc, how are you? He said, good. He said, are we going to do this or what? And at that point, I was at peace with it. I'd made up my mind. I said, yeah. I said, book the surgery. I said, let's do this. And he said, you know what? He said, I've done hundreds of these. He said, you're going to be better off for it in the end. You're going to be able to get your life back. You're going to play hockey again, golf again. You're going to be able to, do groceries. He said, anything and everything, run, you'll be able to work out again. Anything you want to do, you'll be able to do. So that was comforting to hear that from him. And in the end, I think he had given me all the time that I needed to make that decision, and he didn't want to make it for me. And, so that's kind of where we ended up. I had it amputated in June of 2011. The World Championships were in Finland in May. So not even a year later. And the boys that I had talked to on the national team said, don't expect that you'll be able to play in this, because it's, learning how to skate without a leg isn't easy. And there were no truer words spoken at that point, because I was fitted for my prosthetic shortly after the swelling had gone down. So I think I got my prosthetic in September. I went through a whole rehab process. Ottawa's got an incredible rehab facility at the hospital that a lot of our military goes to, and it's world class. So I ended up there. I was supposed to be there for 8 weeks. I often joke that they let me out a little early on good behavior, but I went through the program. I finished it in 5 weeks. And from there, the first thing I did when I got home with my prosthetic that day was I put my skates on. So here I am on my porch with my skates on, and people are looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? He's an amputee, got his skates on, and it's so. But I realized that, we need goals. Everyone needs goals, and I've always set goals for myself. And if that's any lessons to any of the kids, coaches, parents, set a goal, set a daily goal, set a weekly goal, set a yearly goal. Just if you can set a goal, you're going to be, that much better for it, and it'll help you achieve to what you're trying to get to. So, with that being said, what I did was I realized I got to learn how to skate now. So I ended up going to I started getting ice. It was public skating, and my dad had come down to visit, and we had gone out, and I literally I had to hang on to the boards. I think my first skate, I made it around the ice once, one lap. And what you don't realize is that it's so painful to be in a prosthetic at first. Your stump gets sore, and a lot of things that you don't think of prior to having this surgery. So after a while, I started to get it a bit, and there was always a group that played shinny after us. And I thought, you know what? I could probably get out there with these guys and start playing. So I did. I slowly started with them. I'd go out 3 or 4 days a week. And then once it got cold in the wintertime, I had a good buddy of mine in Ottawa, and he encouraged me to go to the outdoor rinks. So he'd pick me up every day. We'd go to the outdoor rink, and it was almost like I was a little kid again, because I'm starting from scratch. I'm learning how to play hockey. I'm learning how to play the game over again. And, it goes back to what I talked about, lengthening my stride with Glenn Murkowski. So now I had to figure out ways to actually stride and not rely on my dominant leg. So I reached out to the guys on the team again, all the leg amps on the Amputee team, and I said, listen, are there any tricks to this? So they'd say, yeah, do this, do that, and make some alterations to your prosthetic and work with your prosthetist. So I went to the first selection camp that they had, and like I said, I could always shoot the puck. So one of my good Neil Martin, I played junior with him. He lives here with me in Barrie, and he's been my best friend since we played junior hockey together. Coniston boys, so not far from where you grew up. And so Neil came with me. He said, yeah, I'll go check it out with you. So I get on the ice. First drill, I get the puck. I step over the blue line. I fire one. I hit the goalie right in the head. I felt so bad. Just something you don't do, right? As a former professional hockey player, you should know better. And so I go over to him. I'm like, sorry, man. I really didn't mean to do that. I apologize. He's like, no, it's all good. He said, I just couldn't react. He said it came at me so quick. So there's Neil sitting in the stands. I look at him. I just looked up at him. He's shaking his head at me like, what the hell are you doing? So they invited me back to the second camp, and then I ended up making the team. So we went to Finland in May of 2012 and won the 6th World Championship. And that was the last one. So there's supposed to be another one this May in Vegas. So I'm hoping it comes to fruition, because I'd like to play again for sure.
Oh, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm kind of lost for words, to be honest with you. I got a lot of emotions going through here, because I just sense like you're a kid. It's like myself, and it's like when you went through that tough time of breaking your leg. That was one thing. I know you're thinking, okay, well, I play again, but you're also thinking like other stuff. You're thinking your health, right?
Yeah.
But when you're going through those years and then you're coming back and you're going to go on the outdoor rink and you love hockey so much, and it might have been also you wanted to exercise or just feel normal and stuff, but your passion for hockey was just oozing out of you. And
It
it's
was.
like it's making me, it's like go like I don't know what to say, to be honest with you. I really don't. It's like I'm emotional right now because I get it because it's like that's my, like I always said that in my life too, because I went through, in between being a hockey player and being opening my business, there was probably 6-7 years where I just didn't know what to do. Like I was lost, and that's so once I got back to hockey, it was like, okay, this is home. This is because like yourself, Northern boys, right? Same thing, shot pucks every day. I used to go in Sudbury because we didn't have the ice. Funny story for you. In Sudbury, even when it was hot, I'd put all my equipment on, including a helmet without a face mask, not roller blades, but roller skates with the 4 wheels.
Now you're dating yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd skate around the block, stick handling. Like that's like the passion. I'm just seeing it coming out of you, and I get it. So, oh man, that's incredible. So playing with the amputees was like a real special moment for you then.
It was. So, it's funny because you go through this whole process, you fly over to Finland and you play in this tournament and you win. And for me is where it all hit me. And through this whole process, and I'd hate to say I went through a depression, but I was depressed for a while there. When you're going through this, you're on crutches and some of the things that happened would blow your mind. Like they took my driver's license away because I lost my driving leg, right? I lost my right foot. So they don't only take your driver's license away, but now you got to start from scratch. So you got to, you got to do your written test again. Then you got to do your driving test again. And I didn't even, I'm embarrassed to say, but we get in the car. So I'm on crutches and I don't have a prosthetic at this time. And I want to get a head start on this. I want to get my license back. So we get in the car and the instructor comes to the car and he looks at me and he's like, all right, what are you here for, this, that, and the other? And I said, well, I'm here to get my license. He said, okay, well, what's the problem? Why did you lose your license? I said, because I lost my leg. So in all seriousness, he looked over at me. He's like, well, how the hell are you going to drive with no leg? I said, I'm not sure, man. That's what I'm here for. So I'd encourage people tomorrow, when you get in your car, go try and drive, make sure there's nothing around, but try and drive with your left foot and see how well that goes for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get in the car and he says, okay, pull up here and make a 3-point turn. So I looked at him. I said, I don't know what a 3-point turn is. We're in the middle of a road. Like, what's a 3-point turn? So he told me what to do. I made the 3-point turn.
Yes.
I can't believe I didn't even know what a 3-point turn was, but he ended up passing me. He was a nice guy. I think he felt sorry for me more than anything else. And the fact that he was still alive when we got back, I think he was more thankful for it than anything. But, when I look back on it, the closure for me in all of it was standing on the blue line and when we won and seeing how happy all the other guys were. But for me, it's hearing the national anthem. And that was because that's something from the time you start playing, whether it's Bantam hockey, all the way up, that's a song that that's been ingrained in you. And here they are playing the Canadian national anthem. And that's when I broke down. I thought, wow, after all of this, I break down listening to this song, right? So, but at that point, I was good. I was at peace with it, and I was comfortable. And for me, that was closure.
Wow, it's incredible. So the term, like we talked earlier today, and I always use the term. My son hears me say it. I talked to his whole team about it the other day about playing like it's your last shift. There was a few years ago. You remember Pat Peak?
I do remember Pat Peak. Yeah.
Okay, so he coached with me 1 year, and we used to talk to the kids about that. And, it's hard for the players. It's hard for a professional player to see it, even like playing like your last shift, because it could be.
Yeah.
Pat used to, we used to talk to the kids like people are going to lose. Like it's going to come to an end at some point. Some people, most people don't see it coming. Most people do see it coming because they're getting old. They're getting slower. The game's getting a little faster for them. Injuries and stuff like that. But like in Pat's case, and in your case, Pat was going for the ice and crushed his heels, never could play again. When he talked to the kids, you could see when he talked about hockey, when we talk about that, it was like he was just so emotional because he wanted to be there again. He'd do anything to be there. For me, it was just, when I was playing, I realized, okay, you're not going to play in the National Hockey League. You kind of said it. It was a league of monsters. Like you and I are both the same size, 5'10". We're really skilled. Love to play now, but when we played, it was tough. They wanted those big guys. So I realized at some point it's just not going to happen. So I'm going to have to move on with my life. How do we, and then you mentioned goals. So how do you combine? Like, I think if you have a strong enough goal, but like when I watched you play, you played with passion. You played every shift like it was your last. Where does that come from, and how can we teach that to kids? Because it's the reality is it's going to come to an end one day, and if I can go back and go and play one more game of junior, oh, I'd love to, just to be with the guys. To like, people don't understand how great it is. Or if I could get that shot to play, in the NHL for Detroit or something like that, it'd be like, wow, it'd be incredible. So how do you get that through the kids? Again, coaches and parents. It's
funny you say that. I have this reoccurring dream all the time, whether I'm playing junior hockey or pro hockey, and I'm sure most hockey players have this when they're done. I've never talked to anybody about it before, but I know I do, and it's just a strange feeling. But as a smaller player, I had no choice but to work hard, because if I wasn't gonna work hard, I was not gonna be there. It's just the way it was. I wasn't skilled enough, to get by on skill alone. And especially back then, you had to fight through checks. There was, I 2 years ago, I watched a video of an old game in the East Coast Hockey League, and the clutching and grabbing,
crazy.
There would have been 30 penalties on every shift.
Yep.
It was, and then the scrums in front of the net, like it was tough. And I wasn't a big guy. I don't want to say I wasn't a tough guy, because toughness isn't necessarily fighting, and it never was. And I was taught that from a young age. You played with one of my uncles, who was probably one of the, a very good fighter, was not a big guy, but toughness is showing up every day. Toughness is showing up to put in the work, to put in, effort, to learn, to be there for your teammates, to take a hit, to make a play. I referred to that before. When I got hurt, that's what I was doing. I was taking a hit to make a play, because that's what we were taught when we grew up. You take the hit to make the play for the better of the team. And if I guess I could say one of my assets was I think I was a good teammate. That was the biggest thing. I was willing to put the team ahead of myself, any day of the week. And there's times where you as a hockey player, if you're a goal scorer or a game breaker, you do have to be a little selfish. You might have to shoot the puck on a 2-on-1, because the chances of you scoring are much better than trying to make a play across to your hold on one second here. I'm just gonna.
Yep. Yeah, you blanked out.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So, there's got to be, a selfish side to every hockey player, because a goal for you is a goal for the team, right? So if like I said, you're on that 2-on-1, and the chances of you scoring are much better than making that play across, because you can make a bad pass, you can get knocked down, and the defenseman's playing the pass, and so yeah, it's tough to say. As hockey players, I think that if you want it, it's there for you. There's opportunity everywhere. I never got to the National Hockey League. I was never drafted. After my second year junior and my draft year and not getting drafted, I really didn't expect to play in the National Hockey League. I wanted to play pro hockey, though, because that was, I realized that there was an opportunity for me there, and I had been told that, hey, if you want, there's a contract here, a contract there, and I got an opportunity to see the whole U.S. and then some, and it was just a great experience, and something I would never give up. And it's to go back and to do it all over again. I wouldn't change a thing. I've lost a leg playing. I've lost teeth. I've broken my nose. You break every bone in your body. I've broken my hands, but when I look back on it and I sit here and I think about all the things that have gone on in my life, my career, hockey is something it's given me everything. It took everything away, but it also gave me everything, and
Same.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Wow. You said something that I preach every day, and this just shows the captain in you again, every single day, because it's the team. It really is the team. It's you know, and I think parents, like, I think when I talk to kids, junior, whatever, everyone has a selfish look, but when they understand the value of a team, like the term I use every day is make people around you better. That's a good hockey player, be a good hockey player, but what makes a person special or make him a really good hockey player is when he makes the people around him better. And you said it really clear without being prompted, but that's the reality. You take hits to make teams, you sacrifice for the team, but then you said something great too. You might have to, if you're the goal scorer, you know, it's actually selfish to make the wrong play because you got to make your team better. So that was fantastic stuff. And that just shows the leader in you. And I hope every kid heard that. What I was going to say about that also is when I talk to children or youth coming up, getting drafted and stuff, people are so worried about the stats. So when I talk to the kids themselves, I can have this conversation about, you know, being a good teammate, making people better. But I find the biggest issue is with parents. And I'm not saying all parents are jerks, but it's just probably because they don't understand it the way we do. Like someone sticking up for you, just being the team guy. So what would you say to parents, like, because they don't understand, like, what would you say? What would you say about being teams, like lay off their kids, or like, is there anything particular you would say? We're throwing you on the spot here.
No, not at all. I was telling the story the other day to a friend of mine, and I said, you know what, my dad was always, I consider him one of the best hockey parents ever, because there was a situation when I was playing minor peewee hockey, and when he came, we got in the car, we had dropped a teammate off at his house, and my mom and him were in the front seat, and he kind of looked back at me and he said, why didn't you do this, or this? And I kind of looked at him and I said, well, because that's not what the coach wants us to do. The coach wants us to do this. So at that point, my mom looked at him and she kind of said, are you kidding me right now? And he didn't say a word. So she stopped talking. He stopped talking. I stopped talking. So we got about 1 kilometer down the road and he looked back at me and said, you know what? You're right. He said, I always want you to listen to what the coach says, because what the coach says, obviously he's got a game plan, and whatever he says is the right thing to do. And ever since that, I would ask my dad, this is Venedam Junior. He never missed a game. He lived in Sudbury. I played Junior B here. 69 was pretty much 2 lanes the whole way back then. It was 1993. He would come. He would watch. Our home games were Thursday night. He'd watch the game. He'd leave after. He'd wait for me after the game. He'd give me a few bucks. He'd get in his car. He had to be up the next morning at 5 o'clock to go to work at Inco. So he might get an hour of sleep when he gets home back to Sudbury, right? So, but I'd always ask him, hey, Dad, what do you think? How do you think I played? Really good. And that's all he'd say. He was supportive in every way, but he never criticized. He never said anything. And he'd always just, you know, he was always positive and optimistic. And, you know, he never talked about other parents. He never talked about other players, other kids. He said, as long as you're happy doing what you're doing, I'm happy. So I guess if that's one thing that you could say to parents, because I think a lot of parents get caught up in a vortex with, you know, dealing with other parents on the team, and you know, you're talking about somebody else's kid or other parents. And I own a sports store, so I hear it a lot, right? I see things, like parents come in and they'll talk to me all the time, and I'll overhear them talking to people. And I'd say just be there for your kid, and I'd worry about your kid. And you talked about being a part of a team. Kids who play on really good teams, if your team is really good, chances are you're going to go a lot further in life than you will if you're playing for a shitty team or a dysfunctional team. Even I just go back to the junior level. Our coach used to say this all the time. The further we go, the better it is for you guys, because when it comes down to it, if there's only 2 teams left playing in early May, all those scouts are watching those 2 teams. Everyone else, there's nobody else to watch. So chances are you're going to get a second, third, fourth look. You get to the pro level. I played minor pro. I was fortunate enough to win 2 championships in minor pro. Well, those championships, I am certain to this day, afforded me my next 2 contracts, 100%. Because teams want players who are winners, who have been there, who have done it before. So I'd say, yeah, focus on yourself and take care of your own backyard first.
Yeah, oh, awesome. The, the circumstances that you had when you, the way your career ended with the leg and stuff like that, or just even all the stuff you went through hockey, did that help you transfer to the rest of your life with the hockey lessons? Because I really like, this is why I do these things, because at the end of the day, only so many people can play the NHL. There's only so many people that are going to keep moving on to junior even. But the lessons in life, like I get them, and I'm trying to teach them to the kids and all the kids that I teach. How did it transfer to you? Like the mental toughness, you had the injury, you bounced back. Did the hockey help you with that, or the lessons you learned?
100%. It's hockey's, like I said, hockey gave me everything, right? And you know, you play the game itself, and the game is played on the ice, but that's only a small piece. Everything else that goes into it, the training, the teammates, the travel, you know, you learn so much from other aspects of the game other than the on ice aspect. The biggest thing I miss from it is the camaraderie and the guys, and you'll hear that from every single hockey player, and you can't explain it until you've been there. And you know, even as a kid, if you were to finish playing hockey at the age of 12, the one thing you'd probably remember is the swimming pools in the hotel during the tournaments, or the mini stick games, and just being part of a group, and that translates to life. I own a store now, and we have a staff of 10, and the biggest thing for me was I said, I want this to feel like a locker room, like a dressing room, and it's, you know, you try and make it as close to to it as possible, but it just, you can't quite get it there because you're not traveling together in the buses and you know, the plane rides. So there's so many things that go into it, and those are the things I miss the most. You know, breaking curfew, and I'm not telling kids to break curfew, but you know, when your coach tells you, you know, those are, when I think back on it, those are the fun times, right? You break curfew, but the next day you got to play guilty, and you come to the rink, and you're all looking at each other saying, "Listen, we've got to put it together here for this game today." And so that's the tough. Those are the things I miss. I remember we were just coming into 2000. We're coming out of 99 into 2000. I was playing in Greenville, South Carolina. We had this massive party at this hotel downtown, 2,000 people. So we had gone to this party, but the next day was an afternoon game. It was a 1:00 game. And so our coach said, "Listen, boys, you guys earned it." He said, John Marks was our coach, former NHLer, played for the Chicago Blackhawks back in the 70s. And Marks, he said, "Listen, you guys earned it. You guys go have fun." Well, we went out and we tied one on that night. We had a great time. So that night, we ran into a couple players from the other team. We were playing PD, there's another team in South Carolina. And they said, "Oh, we're out tonight, but we have curfew. We shouldn't be here, this, that, and the other." But our whole team was out. So we get to the rink, and I want to say it was a late one. We probably didn't turn in until about 3 or 4 that morning. And after party, so we get to the rink next morning, because 1:00 game. So I think we got there at 10:30. So we're at the rink, and we're feeling it. We're hurting. So we find out that the other team, their coach is suspended their 3 best players. So, because they were out that night. So our coach comes into the room. He's like, "All right, boys," he said, here's your chance. He said, "They're suspended." He said he took them out of the lineup. So we went out, and I think we dominated. I think we beat them 6-2 that day. So you know what? When I look back on it, that's one of the best, probably one of the best victories in my career, because I know some guys didn't play sober that night or that afternoon for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what it is. It's the stories. And that's what if people can understand this game, like seriously, like you said it earlier, everything I have in my life comes from hockey. Everything. I mean, I had a period of time where I had to figure out what I wanted again, because hockey was kind of taken away, or I didn't go after it anymore, however we want to put that. And then as soon as I got back into hockey, life was normal again. And I'm not saying everybody has to be a hockey player, but for me, that's where I needed to be. That's where my gift is. And everything I have is from hockey. All my friends basically stem from hockey. My business is the same way. Like you said, it's like a locker room in here. We're tight. We laugh. It's the greatest place in the world to work. And that's the message I always want to get out to the kids, is that if you put absolutely everything into it, like I said, play it's like play like it's your last shift every single day. Practice, like, just take those couple hours a day and give it everything you got, and get as far as you can. Because I mean, even if you only make it to junior, you make so many connections, meet so many people, and you have stories to tell. Like you, I mean, we could tell a lot of stories, I'm sure. But that's why you don't want to have regrets with this game. You want to go absolutely as far as you can, because there's just so much. It'll set you up in so many different ways in life. So we're gonna kind of get closing here, because it's like, I can't believe it's an hour already.
Oh, wow.
I absolutely love talking to you. I want to do this again and maybe go on a different tangent one day. What do you have for anybody, closing remarks that's good, close to your heart, or something, a message you'd like to get out?
You know what, you say play like it's your last shift, and for me, there was two situations in my life and that happened after my second year pro. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which was probably looking back, it was probably one of the hardest things to play with. And I was told by a doctor, hockey's very stressful on the body, it's stressful on the mind, and he said it's probably something that you should look at giving up. I had gone from 200. I was playing back then. I was playing at about 204, and I ended up going all the way down. When we finally won the Kelly Cup in 2002, I was down to 167 pounds. And you talk about perseverance and wanting to do something you love doing. At that point, I thought that hockey could possibly be done for me. And the following year, I slowly started to get a little bit better. I was on prednisone for a couple of years, and a steroid to help you heal. And that was a tough time in my life. And I think that was one thing that helped me, helped me with the amputation, and because I was at a crossroads at an earlier point in my life. And we all have problems, we all have baggage, and it's how you handle those problems and how you face them when they come to be. And they might not be that severe, and they might be a lot worse. I played with players who lost family members, and there's a lot of unfortunate circumstances that'll come up in your life, and face those head on, and you'll be a lot better for it in the end, and a better person, a better player for sure.
Yeah, I love that. That's not just talk's not cheap, though. You live through it. Yeah. And that's, gosh, I'm gonna make a deal with you right now. You speak my language. Like how you're talking is how I talk every day, and it comes through experience. It's passion. You can't manufacture this. Basically what you're saying is, like, in the tough time, character reveals itself when things are tough, and you just said that without saying that. And I want to make a deal with you. I want you, because I do a lot of this speaking stuff, and you inspire people. You have a gift here, brother. You
Thanks,
really do.
Man.
No,
Thanks.
You really do. It's just it's a beautiful thing. Like, it really is. And you have a gift, and I want to include you somehow in my group as I go around places and stuff, because you got a real gift, and I think you put even a little bit of what you put into hockey, into the other gift that you have. I know you're running your business, which is great, but I really think you have something here, and I want to include you somehow, some way. So I'm going to stay in touch with you on that, for real.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as I told you today, for all your viewers and a lot of the people you work with, I'm open to, if you want to give them my email address, and if they have any questions, they want to reach out and talk, I'm more than happy to do so. So I'm here to help, and I had a lot of help along the way, and I just want to, pay it forward and help where I can. So, throw it out there for them.
Yeah, incredible. So just to wrap it up, Sean owns, so Sean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sending out everybody your contact information, your store. So it's 400 Barrie Sorts for Sports.
Yeah.
Sean I can't say words today. Transition that into his career after hockey. So I know it's a very good store. Obviously passionate about it. And I will touch base with you, follow up, but probably tomorrow I'm just going to touch base with you.
Sounds good.
Just say thank you. I really appreciate your effort today. You're dynamite. I know my son's listening and my wife's listening, and they're probably going to say, "Why can't you be like him?" No, I'm just kidding. No, you're fantastic. I loved it, Sean. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm going to touch base with you, and we will move forward. I promise you. For real.
Well, thanks, Andy. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.